Hey everyone, Dr. John Paul here, and I've got another important message for those of you out there in social media world. Don't shush me. Now, what do I mean when I say don't shush me? Last week I posted something on Twitter in relation to the idea of folks celebrating St. Patrick's Day and how if we celebrated black the same way we celebrated green, we wouldn't have half of the problems that we do. Lord, what did I do when I posted that? I had so many people in my DMs and so many people messaging me basically telling me, it's not that deep. Why do you always have to make it about race? And so I decided that this week I'd come to you all with a video letting you know why it's so important not to shush people when we're talking about different social justice issues. So the first thing that I wanted to highlight in this video is that often when folks talk about different issues that affect them, we have to keep in mind that oppression affects people in different ways. The way something affects me is not always going to be the way that it affects someone else, and vice versa. For me to be able to tell someone that it's not that big of a deal automatically highlights the fact that I have some sort of privilege that makes me not have to constantly think about that. And ultimately what I'm doing is I'm basically telling them that their pain doesn't look the way that mine does. It's important to keep in mind that when we're telling somebody that it's not that big of a deal, we're oftentimes letting them know that their way of thinking is not important and that it doesn't matter to us. Once more, it's also important to recognize that silence often equals violence. So what do I mean when I say that? What I mean when I say that silence equals violence, it's the idea that usually it's people in the most privileged positions that have the opportunity to tell someone it's not that big of a deal. So for someone like myself who shares multiple marginalized identities, when I speak openly and honestly about how different oppressions affect me, when someone tells me, oh, it's not that big of a deal, or you need to calm down, they're ultimately telling me that the things that happen to me or happen to other folks that are marginalized are things that we bring upon ourselves. Audre Lorde tells us that when we speak up in our truth, that's when we are most powerful. And so it's important for us to look at it from the perspective of how can I support someone when they're talking about something that could be potentially oppressive or problematic for them. Keep in mind when we tell someone that it's not that big of a deal, or that we tell someone that they don't need to talk about something that affects them from an oppressive frame, we're ultimately gaslighting them and feeding into the same cycle that often oppresses us. So when one marginalized individual tells another marginalized individual that they shouldn't talk about something that may affect them in a visceral way, we're ultimately telling them that the cycle of oppression that they face is something that they're bringing on themselves. It shouldn't be spoken upon. I am an advocate that when you use your voice to talk about things that affect you, and not only affect you, but affect other people, that is when we are creating change and we are changing the world. Yes, it does suck to constantly have to bring up the injustices that happen to us. And it does suck that sometimes conversations become negative in relation to how we talk about our experiences. But if we're not talking about them, or we're being silenced in relation to the discussion around these issues, all we are doing is a disservice to not only ourselves, but other folks who need allies. So the one thing that I want to bring up to everyone today is to start thinking about different ways that we're silencing people. Whether we're saying it's not that big of a deal, or whether we're telling people, I don't want to talk about that right now. What we're ultimately doing is we are keeping the conversation from moving forward. So what I'm challenging all of you to do today is to start thinking about different ways that you can elevate the conversation, and start thinking about ways that you can advocate for folks who don't have a voice. As we know, in the last couple of months, trans Black lives have continued to be under attack. How are you using your voice to talk about those issues? There are a myriad of issues that are happening around us, and it is so important that we don't shush other people when they find the power and they find the strength to talk from a truthful place. I want to say thank you to everybody who follows me on social media. Please continue to subscribe, and also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by using the handle Dr. John Paul. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I hope you all have a great day. Take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.